Hey kids, howdy and welcome. Once again, it is time for Conscious Embodiment, Astrology, and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. It is September 8th, and we are still in Eclipse energy. I mean, I don't know what time y'all are listening to this, but anybody who's listening to this, Sunday night after midnight when we put it out, or Monday morning, it's around 11:45 a.m. Pacific time this Monday that the Pisces moon will move into Aries, and that's the sort of first, ending of the eclipse. There's something else I'll talk about that happens in a couple of days, but once the Pisces moon gives way to Aries, it cuts off the sign. I don't know that it cuts off the amplification of energy because we are in eclipse season. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we call the wormhole and what that is and why we use that term. But first, instead of answering a question, I'm going to talk about something that sort of happened to me in, exploring out of bounds and a little bump in with AI. And its limits in astrology.
Heard this. I don't know what you're saying.
Oh God, yeah. I got smacked by AI and an hallucination, and put a video out about out of bounds, and then someone else commented that an astrologer that they follow did a live, and I guess that astrologer knows who I am, and said Dr. Michael Lennox is wrong. So instead of just dismissing it, I went and I looked and I found out, indeed, I was mistaken because of AI's hallucination. So that's what our first little section is going to be about. AI hallucinating in astrology, but also what out of bounds is and why we're talking about it.
Yeah, okay, tell me more.
Now, I also talked about this last week in my global healing meditation. So if you attended that or watched the recording, this is going to sound very familiar. So what is out of bounds? We certainly know the transits in astrology, which is sort of like the horizontalness or verticalness. Oh, Jesus, it doesn't matter. It's the way the planets are interacting with each other geometrically from our perspective. So we sort of think of that transit astrology and those shapes is made by the planets moving through space. But there's this thing called declination of planets. So it starts with this thing called declination. So declination isn't like transits where planets are making geometrical connections like from our perspective looking out at them. To understand declination, you'd have to be like looking at the solar system from a God's eye view. And what you would see is that all of the planets sort of hover in the same plane of movement. We think of it as like up and down from the flat disk, but of course we're in space, so there is no up and down. But if you could think of the planets as a flat disk where there is an up and down sensibility, declination is when a planet drops below or moves above the plane that the rest of the planets are in. So there's like this thin swath of space where everybody dwells, but everybody's moving up and down a little bit because it's a dynamic system. So all planets will periodically leave that thin band and go below or above the territory where everybody else is, and that's called out of bounds. And the idea is that a planet out of bounds is like somewhere else that isn't ordinary. So then you would assume that the planet is acting in strange and unusual ways that reflect, weird things that happen on the planet. But here's the thing, even though all planets go out of bounds and something you can look at, most astrologers have a sense that the only out-of-bounds planet that means anything like directly in our human landscape is Pluto. So Pluto is like the gravitas of the solar system. The archetypal meaning is power, authority, death, rebirth, the hidden stuff that's below our awareness. So it's a real juicy planet, especially because we ascribe to Pluto the meaning of death. Everything about life is connected to death because you have no life without death, and Pluto understands like that mystery. And since death is a symbol of change, right? Every death has a rebirth, even our literal deaths have some sort of a mysterious rebirth, after we pass. So when Pluto goes out of bounds, change, transformation, big, deep movement on the planet that we would call sort of intense and powerful and maybe even a little scary happens when Pluto goes out of bounds. So here's the little AI kerfuffle that I had.
Yeah, I was curious
Well,
about
here's
that.
the thing. I encourage people to use AI if they want to learn more about astrology or check out things that are germane to their chart. AI is good at interpretations, how to understand certain signs or transits, right? It can absolutely illuminate something you might know is happening to your chart.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute you need something more sophisticated, like planetary movement and when eclipses happen and like when a planet goes out of bounds, it has no idea. It has no ability. It doesn't even have a declination ephemeris in its consciousness. It only has lots of astrological like tropes and truths and ideas. But if you want to check like I did, hey, AI, when has Pluto gone out of bounds in the last bunch of years? Which I did because I saw that it was going out of bounds on August 29th for a long time, which is what Pluto does. And I wanted to look at the details. And so when I was seeing all sorts of people online going, Pluto's going out of bounds on the 29th and it's going to change everything, I got the results on AI that Pluto had been going out of bounds since 2018. But Zoe, I didn't leave it at that. I checked a second time and got the same hallucination.
Yeah,
I tried again just to double check because I know that there are limits, and I got the same information about out of bounds in 2018. But you understand, it did not have the information. And instead of saying that, made some shit up. So I then put out a video, and then I look like a freaking schmuck because I'm already someone out there that people, just traditional astrologers, sometimes look askance at because, I have opinions. And this was just wrong. So I wanted to share about this both at the Global Healing Meditation and in this week's podcast, mostly because I was a little embarrassed and I wanted to just be clean about that I made a mistake and what I learned as a result. And now let me talk a little bit about Pluto's going out of bounds. So you sort of understand, hopefully, that when Pluto is out of bounds, change and transformation will be intensified in some odd manner. And Pluto will be out of bounds from now until 2037.
Huh.
That's a long time.
That is, yeah.
That's what Pluto does. Now, it's not a solid 12 years or whatever. I can't do math. Yeah, 12. That Pluto's just in that territory. What he'll do is Pluto will go out of bounds for 150 days and then in bounds for 5 months. And then he'll go out of bounds again for 75 days and then come out into, ordinary space for a few months, right? And keep doing that at different numbers, usually as low as maybe 65 and as high as about 200 days. But it will continue to do that for 12 years straight. And it hasn't done this from 1938 to like 1952. And those years were World War II and the
Oh my
aftermath
God.
of World War II, which was the Cold War and the beginning of the nuclear arms race. Totally transformed the landscape of life on Earth. Certainly, as you know, because I live in the United States, I talk about the United States history a lot because it's my history. We are moving in, and moving in. August 29th was the day Pluto went out of bounds, but it didn't surprise me that AI hallucinated that it's been through 2018 because I think the deep changes of crazy times started long before this year. And Pluto moves slow enough that even if August 29th was the day he hit out of bounds, his movement has been signaling this for a while. We are in a 12-year period that, like back in the 30s through the 50s, will mark changes on the planet that are as sort of great as those decades back in the last century, but based on where we're at now. Part of what this means is like the climate that we're in. I don't mean the political climate. I mean the astrological climate that we're in isn't going anywhere. It's like not lightening up anytime soon. And then the Pluto's sort of long out of bounds, years will be reflected in what happens on the planet that I think we won't really appreciate until history lets us look back at it because we're just in it.
Right.
One last thing I want to say, though, about out of bounds. Like other things that I don't sort of, identify with as an astrologer, the thing I would say to someone who's like curious about what Pluto going out of bounds means for them, the question I would ask is like, why? Like, what's the value of that? Now, I know that a lot of astrologers love that aspect of astrology and are passionate about looking at these things and yay, you'll go, look, it's fascinating. But I use astrology to contextualize and navigate my own life day to day, and that's how I teach astrology as a tool to both self-investigate, navigate the shifts and changes that you're going through, and understand what the weather is going to be like at any given moment so that your Tuesday or your Thursday or your September is the best that it can be because you're consistently looking at the weather, and so you're never caught outside without a raincoat. So I don't see how knowing Pluto is out of bounds can be helpful. If anything, it's probably going to inspire a little fear and trepidation about the future. So I will not be thinking about Pluto being out of bounds after this week's podcast. Like, that's it. I'm presenting what I presented, both from the error I made and the value of knowing a little bit about what's happening in astrology. And then I'll counter it by saying, I don't think you need to pay attention to this outside of a kind of curiosity about the wild times that we are in. Now, this is going to be one of the shortest episodes we've had because I don't make shit up just to have them be 35 or 40 minutes long. I talk about the astrology of the week.
Of course.
And so we don't have a lot happening this week that's, worth talking about. So indeed, yes, the episode will be short because there isn't a lot to describe. That said, we're just coming out of a whopping eclipse, and we have another one coming. So we are in what we call the wormhole between eclipses. And sometimes when we go through something big energetically, and then it's quiet in the planets after, I think that's more uncomfortable. Right? Because I use this image and it works for me that it's like, because I used to do CrossFit, like after a heavy duty CrossFit workout where everyone's doing the same thing at the same time. So that would be like a big crashing transit. Then it gets quiet in the planets. That's like the workout ending. What happens after that? Well, everybody moves in response to the big thing they just finished. Some people run to get a drink of water. Some people fall on the floor and don't move for a minute or two, right? Some people go and talk to each other. You know, it's like you reverberate with how the workout hit you. And so part of what we will experience this week in a general sort of way is that you're going to feel something based on the quietude after a big full moon total solar eclipse. So this idea of a wormhole, which is literally taken from like quantum physics and science fiction, the idea that you can be in one place in space and have the universe fold up against itself so that you can shoot into a whole other place in the universe in an instant. New moons, full moons, they're kind of like the piston rhythm of our solar system. Right? They're the sort of, well, you're a musician. It's like the metronome. It's the counter, right? Right? Boom, 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 boom.
There you go.
And we sort of shoot forward with every new moon, and then we kind of not pause, but we sort of allow for a cut, a psychic surgery at every new moon, and that propels us forward and allows for growth along the way. That idea of moving into new territory in consciousness when we are in eclipse seasons becomes amplified, wildly so, so much so that my teacher, Stephanie Azaria, she started using that phrase. And so I adopted it because I learned astrology from her and on my own. I'm mostly self-taught, and I didn't study with her a lot, but I studied with her enough to use the wormhole as a description. So you won't necessarily find that as a ubiquitously used astrological moniker out there, but there's enough of us who are using it. And it's a lovely image. You know, I love analogy and symbols, anything that can convey something that a person will understand because I'm using, more poetry than, structural language. You can expect to shift and change at lightning speed and very intensely in an eclipse more than at other times. We call that the wormhole.
This sounds really great for change, because are we still in Virgo season? And then so it's like
Virgo is all about
shit,
like how everything
making
works and is put together, like the erector set that is us. And so, yes, in Virgo, we can dismantle the moving parts and like assemble. I like Humpty Dumpty as an image too. Humpty Dumpty falls and cracks, but then the king's men and women put them together again. That's also change and transformation. Virgo invented that.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people are having a hard time right now. Can I say, if you are currently crashing out, take this opportunity.
That's right.
Just, pat yourself on the back and slowly put your pieces together for the next month.
We have double hit of Virgo this month. There was a new moon in Virgo at the end of September at like the very, very beginning of Virgo. And so a month has passed and the next new moon is still in Virgo. So that's a double hit. That means we have two opportunities to start again in the Virgo sensibility. That Virgo new moon eclipse is also at the mastery degree, the 30th degree. Talk all about that when we get there. But yeah, you're on the right track in that we are past the psychic surgery that full moon yesterday gave us. And so that's how we enter this like wormhole. When a full moon starts eclipse season, as opposed to a new moon starting it out, we kind of enter the wormhole post-surgery, which means the release has sort of happened. And then instead of moving into the next territory of Libra, where we have to find balance and harmony at a moment when there's very little balance and harmony to be had, we get to revisit the idea of setting an intention to go forward with integration, healing, moving parts working together, cooking with gas. And in some ways, the real intense passage has just started. Now, on Tuesday, we have the real close of eclipse season with the moon in conjuncting the sun. This happens 2 days before every full moon and 2 days after every full moon. And it's these two hits for me that are the release mechanism, even more than the sun and moon in opposition, because what's happening energetically when the sun and moon in conjunct is that the sun is our conscious awareness. And if the moon is holding what we would call the great eliminator angle with our conscious awareness, and the moon represents our connection to the unconscious mind, that 2 days before the full moon hits, we're already in a moment where we're opening, the trunk to the car or the door to the basement, whatever image works for you. Then 2 days later, we go through the big waft of the full moon experience. And then 2 days after, Tuesday, we close it up. Guess you could say that Wednesday closes it up because Tuesday is still another day where the unconscious is going to be rumbling a bit and you might feel some kind of a way as a result of that. And then once we get past Tuesday, we are out of the full moon energy, but we ain't done yet. There's something happening on Wednesday that I would call the heart of eclipse season. So this is a south node eclipse season because the sun is aligned with the south node. In 6 months, we'll have a north node season because the sun will have moved. And last eclipse season was a north node, right? They alternate. There's some confusion out there sometimes where someone might call like the full moon we just had as a north node eclipse because the moon is near the north node. But what makes an eclipse season is our conscious awareness. We're not aware of what the moon is doing. We can't be. So because our conscious awareness is aligned with the point that represents our past, our awareness is concentrated in the past. Even in a full moon by the north node, we're dropping stuff from the past. And even the new moon eclipse up ahead, I'll be saying something like, now that we have a second Virgo new moon, this is the one where we can set Virgin-like intentions, but from a much clearer, open, elevated space, because the first eclipse sort of helped us drop the past in earnest.
Ooh, I like that, in earnest. I resonate with this so much, trying to make changes in your psyche and
beautiful.
Just the way that I've been working, I'm like, it needs to change. And there's been a lot of clarity or realizations hitting me about how my life has been because of things like the way that I've worked internally.
Yeah, you've said it now twice. The way that I'm working. That's Virgo. Virgo is how you do the work, where you put the tools. When I cook now, because I've watched MasterChef for 6 years, I do Mise en place. I get everything out and
Really?
And put together. It's on the counter. I clean as I go because that's what I've watched, chefs do. But in the past, they didn't do that. It was just like, where's the pepper?
Right.
It's all ADHD all the time. That's changing how I work. And the evolution is a much more efficient way of cooking a meal. So you're talking about then the human experience of that, which is this eclipse season has quite literally, because they've changed how we get to use literal now, about how we work and reforming how we approach our daily routine, our approach to, the healing and the grooming of the body, everything that is or has moving parts. Virgo rules. We're doubling down on our ability to shift how we work and be more effective in the year ahead. So your day is Wednesday.
Got it.
The sun will be exactly conjunct the south node on Wednesday. So one could imagine then that if the sun is our conscious awareness inside of a wormhole triggered by a full moon, that when the sun aligns with the point that holds our past in its little basket, there might be some awareness, some conscious awareness of deeply held patterns and material that wants to be released and let go of at this time. So it's a great day for journaling about that or diving into a meditation with that as your kind of, intention. Just anything that might like land for you as a moment to look at, specifically at what patterns you are letting go of that you wouldn't be able to see. The moon represents patterns that are unconscious to us, so we can never see them. And the South Node is blind to us as well. We just keep putting shit from the past into the South Node like a septic tank. And once it's there, we can't see it. So past, challenges that taught you something, they're sitting in the South Node. Past challenges that blew a hole in your world are sitting in your South Node, just waiting for a moment to release. And every South Node eclipse season has that in spades. And Wednesday is kind of the peak of that. So we have another conjunction to talk about that's important that happens on Saturday. This is what we call the superior conjunction between Mercury and the sun. Because Mercury is so close to the sun and his orbit is so rapid, from our perspective, he's never terribly far from the sun. He can't be. If we're looking at the sun and Mercury's right next to the sun, we're going to see Mercury to the left and the right of the sun a certain number of degrees, and it ain't much. It's maybe 17 in each direction. But once in every portion of the Mercury cycle, the sun and Mercury gather. That means they gather when Mercury is retrograde, and they gather like now when Mercury's in his free and clear state, not retrograde. In fact, this is fun. I love this image. It sort of brings to life the value of the Mercury retrograde. The inferior conjunction, which happens during a retrograde, has Mercury in between us and the sun. So in the inner space, where now with the free and clear, he's on the other side of the sun. So way over there, not such a big deal, because when it's the inferior and Mercury is retrograde, we're kind of blind. And then the conjunction with the sun allows conscious awareness of whatever Mercury's experiencing down below. So when that day comes, we make a big deal about it, and I call it the aha moment of the retrograde. And indeed, it's likely that something will be revealed to you on that day that connects to whatever the retrograde cycle is bringing you. Now, you might wonder why I'm talking all about Mercury's retrogrades and the inferior conjunction when Saturday is the superior conjunction. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's the same principle of conscious awareness and kind of navigating and thinking and perception lining up. It's just not as elevated and high stakes because Mercury's not retrograde. And so there won't be an aha that comes from the unconscious because Mercury's not visiting there. But similar to Wednesday, where there's an opportunity to sort of vibe in a conscious way with patterns that you're letting go of in this wormhole, on Saturday, if you spend a little rumination time considering where you want to go next, how's that going for you? What does your, mind have to say about what your beingness wants to create? Do you have the perception that something is, for you and worth your time? Or the opposite? Whatever you discover, you gotta sit down to do a little perceiving in order to have that discovery. And that's an opportunity that comes on Saturday when the Sun and Mercury meet up at 21 degrees of Virgo. And not for nothing, there's a loose sextile on Saturday with Jupiter in Cancer. So that means mind and the I am of us is working really well with the capacity to manifest and expand. That's Jupiter's job, and he's exalted in the sign of Cancer. So it's like, I want cash and prizes, I want more of them, and I want them delivered. That's Jupiter in Cancer. So when I invite you on Saturday and Sunday, perhaps, to consider in a quiet, meditative way, like what you're wanting to create and how your perception is aligned or misaligned, the presence of Jupiter makes the weekend actually potentially productive and expansive with regard to what I'm inviting you to do. Now, the transit isn't exact, or I would have talked about it as an exact transit. It's a 59-degree sextile, so that's really close. That's tight. But again, I don't talk about a transit unless it's geometrically accurate. But it's there, close enough, and it makes the opportunity of self-reflection over the weekend more hopeful, more likely to have a kind of inspired sense of anything is possible. And yeah, I invite you to move into the idea, the possibility that anything is possible, because what's the worst that can happen? You set intentions in the next new moon, and they don't come to fruition, and you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again like we've all done so many times. So just as this week is sort of quiet, next week ain't. Not at all. We got Mercury changing signs, moving into Libra. We've got Venus leaving Leo and moving into Virgo, which is going to be yummy and helpful for us in the new moon ahead. But it makes, the week next week, have yet another little like shift that we go through when a personal planet changes signs. And then on Sunday, we've got the next eclipse. So enjoy the quietude if you experience it. And just remember, I believe in our resilience as human beings. I believe in the promise of the age of Aquarius and the idea that we can move towards peace for humanity, even if it won't come in my lifetime. I believe we're moving through something. And yes, the extinction grab is making it look terrifying, like that peace won't happen. But I trust that it will. We just have to get through the bumps. So let the eclipse season be the radical period of change that's going to set you up for success as we are charged with moving through the rest of the year and the wild ride that 2026 is going to be. Have at it.
Did you know that Michael has a daily astro alert? If you enjoy hearing the weekly astrology, you might like knowing more about each day. When you subscribe for the daily astro alerts, you'll get an in-depth explanation of the day's astrology sent right to your email. Subscriptions are only $10 a month, or you can purchase the yearly subscription at the reduced price of $100. To subscribe, head over to michaellennox.com. All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show. This week we have a call-in dreamer. Tasmin is calling from New York. Hey Tasmin, what you dreaming?
Hi guys. So I have a dream and then a question with it. My question is, what is the meaning of recurring dreams with the same theme? And like, why do we have them? I have two examples. I've had a dream my whole life since I was a child, involving elevators. The elevator is always either crashing down or shooting up. It's always strangers in the elevator. I don't know who it is. The last one I had was very interesting because the elevator was going up, kind of like exploding, however you want to explain it. And I turned to the person next to me who was freaking out and said, "Don't worry, you always wake up before you die." So I literally woke up and I was like, "Oh my God, that was really deep."
No, really, truly.
And then so that's been my whole life since I was a child. And then another one I've had is one that's been in the past like 5 years, regarding my mother. I get very violent with her in the dream.
Yeah.
She's never been violent with us. They did start happening about like 6 months after she came out of rehab for alcohol.
Yeah.
But it is a recurring dream, and I just kind of don't understand like why I keep having it, because I'm in a great place with her now. We talk regularly. So
Got
it's just
it.
kind of confusing.
So 6 months, you're saying, for that one?
It started 6 months after she went to rehab. So that's been going on for probably like
not 6
5
months
years
ago,
total.
6 months after. Okay,
Yes,
that's a
yes.
fabulous distinction. Well, so there are like sort of two different kinds of recurring dreams that you've actually given me one of each.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
There's the standard stressful dream that someone's going to find at some point earlier in their life that just gives a kind of difficult, chaotic, scary experience in a dream so that you can wake up and do it all again, right? And so we know that it's that if it's recurring. So on one level, it's just the function of you're in some stress. Your brain knows that. It knows, ooh, here's a shorthand. We don't have to work too hard. Just get her that image of the elevator. That always works. Did you ever see Inside Out? The Pixar movie?
No.
They do. They're very accurate in how they
Okay.
describe dreams, memory, and like psychology. And so they talk about like the clown. Let's get the clown. She's upset. So it's the same kind of thing. Anytime we're stressed, we're going to have that dream. Mostly it's things like falling or tsunamis or sharks. A lot of people who are younger have the zombie dreams because of media and zombies. Yours is interesting.
Yeah, I grew up not around elevators either, so it was kind of weird to have that as like a crazy dream.
That.
And like now I'm around a lot of elevators now, so I literally hold my breath when I walk into an elevator.
No! So it's possible that you did see something in media involving an elevator that landed on your small brain that did that. But there's always something to interpret about like why that image. You know, the tsunami person is definitely going to have some interesting relationship to their feeling nature and their emotions. And tsunamis, you know, water overwhelm. So elevators, there are two things that I want to say about elevators. One is that because they go up and down, and we kind of think of our consciousness as up or down, our moods as up or down, right? There's all sorts of up and down you know, in a symbolic way.
Yeah.
Like I sometimes think of like the unconscious as below us and divine thought as above us. So in some ways, because an elevator is in three-dimensional space, it's not in the unconscious or in the ethers above, us in elevators that are not going well has something to do with like where we're at in our consciousness level, attempting to get higher and higher, and then finding you frighteningly fall to a great drop, which is a little bit like life when you're stressed. Even if it's like 7-year-old Tasmin who's having trouble on the playground, who saw an elevator sometime in a movie or something, might have that dream. So it absolutely has that function. But I also follow my instincts and I take notes now because I'm too old to remember dreams fully without. But I also will make notes to myself while I'm hearing someone speak a dream. And the notes I made to myself was control and practicing death. Both of which are really powerful human constructs. We are all running through life trying to control stuff that we cannot control. So a dream where you go so profoundly out of control that it's to risk death, then to me, that's a function of sort of visiting the idea of control and being shown that you don't have any in a way that can help you wake up and sort of be in the world again. But when you said, oh, I like that thing about like turning to that person, first of all, to me, I think someone in the world had a lucid dream that night of being in an elevator and someone turning to them and saying, don't worry, you'll wake up before you die. That's what I think. I mean, I'm being cute, but who knows?
Yeah.
So the fact that you brought that up and that it was a theme in the latest one, and here you are talking to me after that dream, that to me is revealing of your psyche, that somehow there's also this sense of getting more comfortable with the idea that life is out of control and that we die, because my belief is that if we don't do that well enough in practice ways through life, then we're more terrified when death actually comes. So just as I think we go to sleep to practice death and wake up to practice rebirth, I think your dream is on some level also helping you get to higher levels of your consciousness and practice your death. Even you saying that in this current iteration of the dream reflects that you've had some growth within that landscape, no?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've never
Right.
spoken in the dream before, so I kind of woke up and I was
you
like, oh my God.
you spoke from authority.
Yes.
Like, I've been here before, don't worry. So then, Tasmin, if that's the case, if the fear I'm going to die, and you know that we won't because you've been there before, then the purpose is to experience that fear, knowing you're not gonna die, but you're gonna feel like it, and that's valuable. Not only practicing death in a spiritual way, that will help you move out into the world, like on a Tuesday, better equipped to handle, life on life's terms because you had that dream.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Now, the other kind of recurring dream is like a problem-solving experience over a short period of time where some theme comes in to accurately reflect some dynamic change that's happening in your life through a recurring image. The easiest example I have of this that's so simple is I once worked with a woman who was, leaving a marriage that was very difficult and a little dangerous to get out of. In the East, she drove across the country, which was a profound experience of liberation and fear of the unknown. And then she lands in Los Angeles. Eventually we meet, we start working together. And she had those dreams of in a car crossing the country for like a year and a half after leaving, because she was processing over that year and a half the act of leaving, and going into the dream state was helping her do that. Now, with regard to you being in a good place with your mom, what's fabulous about this dream is I think this dream is helping you be fabulous with your mom in your waking life, because part of you is visiting the rage. If your mom is in rehab as an adult, that means you come from a history of relating to your mother in such a way that is her not showing up with her best. Yeah?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's a history in that. There might be conscious delight that she got her shit together, that she went into rehab, and you are showing up fully for that, which you can do right now because part of you is looking at being with the rage, which is important. And some of it, at least at this moment, is yours to be with, not necessarily yours to like bring to her.
Yeah, I know. It's something I want to express or anything like that. Like, I'm at peace. I don't feel like
it doesn't
bringing
feel
anything
like
up.
it when there's nothing in the way you described the dream or the way you described your mother that would have given me that thought.
Yeah.
So I do really think that it is, it's funny, mom's coming out of rehab. I've noticed this about sober people who are struggling to get sober and those who are clean and sober. The people who are sort of clean and struggling might have dreams when they're clean and successful. And the person who's sober, they're going to have slip dreams. Why? Because we don't need to visit the side we're aware of in our conscious life. We need to go where the fear and the unknown is. And we do that in dreams.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yay! I love this call. Thanks for calling in, Tasmin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the Daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.